Okay, I don't know if you can hear my roommate. I'm annoyed, is whatever. Welcome back to another quick review. Today we are talking about Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic that just released. And so the conversation online the past couple of days or so has been between critics versus fans. Critics who think the movie isn't great, fans who think the movie is great. And as both, as a self-proclaimed critic, as well as a fan of Michael Jackson, a fan of Michael Jackson since I was the ripe old age of 4, I want to I want to chime in on this, as well as I do quick reviews for everything, so I might as well. And I think my main thing I'm going to say about this movie is that I understand both sides. I get both sides. So let me start with the negatives, and I think there's actually a little bit more negative than positive in this review, and that's something you just got to kind of deal with, right? The biggest issue with this movie, and it has nothing to do with the. That's not true. It has something to do with the content in the movie itself, but more so out circumstances surrounding the movie. And that's not to deal with legal stuff. I'll get to that in a moment. That's to do with how the movie was advertised. And that's the biggest issue with this movie. It's not. It doesn't feel like if it doesn't feel like it's a part one, right? The way it's advertised does not make that movie feel like it's a part one. And obviously it is. I knew that going in. Or I say I knew that going in. I don't know the status of the second movie. I don't know what's going on with that. But I know it's a part one, right? And even then, it didn't feel right. Like the movie's pacing is off, is what I'm saying. Um, its pacing is off, and there are certain things that are cut from the life of Michael Jackson that I think does not leave the movie in a great place. And ultimately, right, I think that kind of leads into my second point, which is at times it doesn't feel like a biopic. I know stands on Twitter are getting mad over reviews calling this movie out and whatnot, but it is an actual issue with the movie. A lot of what I assume a biopic to be is a movie that's supposed to show the life of a person, both good and bad. The proper story, that's the proper way to tell a story like this. Be told without propaganda. Should be told everything needs to be told, right? And outside of the family issues that Michael had, this movie doesn't really address a lot of the doesn't really address / skips over the more dramatic aspects of his career, like Motown and things with Jermaine and the conflicts and tensions that came with the Victory Tour. It addresses those little, like, the Motown and Jermaine stuff just kind of gets mentioned once, as well as and then the Victory Tour I don't think is expanded on enough. Um, they don't ever show that conflict or the rising tension that Michael has with not only his father, obviously, but his brothers as well. And then, of course, the legal issues and the pedophilia stuff and whatnot, which is later in the timeline, and exactly why, along with his career post bad, this movie should have been advertised as a part one. Now, I don't know if they put part one on it, or they do something different, but it should have been advertised. It should have been better advertised, because it technically was. It should have been better advertised as a part one. And I'm saying, I don't know how they title it, because they're probably going to title the second movie Jackson and be what it be. But yeah, so some of the things that were kind of taken out absolutely had to do with legal stuff with other people in life. I know there was a whole thing about Diana Ross the other day, as well as legal stuff regarding court cases and whatnot. I have my own opinions on that. That's not important to this review at the moment. But let's get into the actual movie itself, as I spent a long time on just that. I think another big thing with this movie is that it kind of loses its conflict about halfway through. It doesn't really pivot. And then when they bring that conflict back, in my personal opinion, it doesn't really hit like it should. Like the Victory Tour stuff doesn't hit as hard as it should. I feel like we should have had a little bit more with Joseph sprinkled in, you know, just a little bit more with his father sprinkled in. Um, the rest of the movie feels like we're kind of moving on a straight line, like a Wikipedia summary, and it lacks the conflict needed to hold up a movie like this. You know, and that's kind of my issue. That kind of ties back into my point with it doesn't feel like a biopic at times. It feels like a sing along at times. And the old people in the theater definitely made that possible. But it feels like a sing along at times. We're just kind of, we're gonna listen to the entire song. We're gonna play the entire song, or the entire performance. And you're gonna like it. And to be fair, I think that is a positive of the movie. Is really fun just listening to this stuff in the theater. But as a movie, it's weird. It definitely needs another like 20 to 30 minutes to flesh everything out. Uh, to work. It needs a 20 to 30 more minutes of, things with the Victory Tour issues, family issues, the Bad Era, which I hope doesn't get skipped over in the next movie because that's my favorite album. And we just kind of fast track to just him doing a bad performance, like not so much, him making the album or coming up with the album and whatnot. I hope they do. I really hope they cover that because that's my favorite Michael Jackson album. I love Bad. But yeah, it needs like another 20 to 30 minutes to breathe and make things work. And I I I think if it had that plus a little bit more of the dramatic aspects of his career, and like I said, not the legal pedophilia stuff, then the movie is just that much better. It's that much better. The big thing, like I said, is that it feels like I'm reading a Wikipedia summary of Michael Jackson's life rather than watching a movie about his life. And I think that's kind of where I get to my last point, my last negative in regards to like comparisons to other biopics, right? And there's a whole lot of comparisons recently online to Elvis. And the thing about Elvis is that Elvis, I think my phone turned off mid recording, so we're just gonna deal with that, I guess. The thing about Elvis is that Elvis kind of, if that comparison feels, call it, critics hypocritical and whatnot, that comparison feels unfair to Elvis specifically, to that movie specifically, because that movie is great. That is a great movie. Um, and that movie wasn't afraid to show literally every issue in his career, and I think that's something that this movie doesn't do. It doesn't show as the more. It plays it safe. It is a safe movie, which is fine. But as a Michael Jackson biopic, I don't think it works all that well. Um, I think it's kind of the same thing with like you don't fall into a category of like an Elvis or a Oppenheimer or a whole bunch of these like other not even like non-musical biopics. A whole bunch of these biopics you fall into a category like Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like mixed to a lot of people, and I'm not sure that's where you want to be as a musical biopic. The positives though, unlike the trailers, for some reason the movie looks great. I don't know. I don't understand what it is. The movie looks great. The trailers don't do it justice. It actually looks like a good movie, and I really enjoyed some of the performances. Not all of them land, but some of the performances land really well. Specifically, Jafar Jackson's Michael. He's great. He's great in that role. And even if he if he branches out outside of Michael Jackson and whatnot, outside of being Michael Jackson, if he does decide he wants to be a actor, I think he can do it. I think he has the chops to do it because I think he does this role really well. And then the other standout performance, as usual, Coleman Domingo's great. Coleman Domingo's a great actor, man. I love Coleman Domingo. Everything that I've seen that man in, he is just a phenomenal actor. I think he just plays such a horrible person really well. And obviously the soundtrack and the music is great. And so I think to wrap everything up, the movie plays it safe. So it needs a little bit more time to bake. It doesn't do anything horrendously bad, but it doesn't do anything extremely good. It's just fine. It's like a 6 out of 10, and I say this as a huge fan of Michael Jackson. It's like a 6 out of 10. Could be better, could be worse. And that's where kind of going to leave it at. I understand both sides of the argument. Anyway, that's it for the quick review. Thank you for watching. See ya. Bye.